Hey there, welcome to the Marketing Happy Hour podcast, where each week we're learning career-defining advice, powerful social media strategies, unique creative tips, groundbreaking influencer marketing tactics, and more from marketing experts that represent some of the world's leading brands. Let's dive in. Grab a drink and join your hosts, Cassie and Erica, for this week's episode. This week, Erica and I are getting nerdy and talking strategy and data with Sara Arbelaez, social media and influencer marketing strategist for Heelys. That's right, the shoes we wore as kids with wheels built into them. They're still a thing, trust me. Sara takes us through the beginning of her career, where she navigated her interest to discover a marketing career she loves in a field she's super excited about, and how she faced rejection along the way. We discuss strategies for engaging Gen Z shoppers, including crafting content just for them and building genuine connections with this age group. Sara also spills her secret for getting to know Heelys' target market on a very deep level. Hint, it involves spending a lot of time in your brand's DMs. We round out the conversation with some personal branding advice from a fellow LinkedIn content queen, and of course, share some professional advice. Grab your favorite beverage and let's get ready to dive into this week's conversation with Sara of Heelys. Hey Sara, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing well. Super excited to hear from you today about all of your experience. You've worked for some really awesome brands, so excited to dive into that. But I do have an important question for you that we ask all of our guests, and that is, what is in your glass tonight? This is marketing happy hour after all.
So I was prepared for this one. Right now I have a glass of white wine, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. I wanted to have like a Four Loko ready. Just not even mention it and super casual, like, oh, I'm drinking a Four Loko right now.
Oh
my gosh. But I was like, maybe just not start off that way. So I have one for now.
It's too good. My gosh, we would not judge.
No,
love it.
Absolutely not. We actually, one of my LinkedIn connections sent us some, what is this called?
Rowdy
Mermaid. And it's actually so fun. It's like kombucha, adaptonic, which I thought meant
adaptogens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it has like, oh yeah, reishi mushroom. I don't know. Anyway, it's really good. It's delicious. Really good. So highly shout recommend. Out to Rowdy Mermaid.
More on TikTok.
What?
I see those more and more on TikTok.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I hadn't heard of the brand, but they're really good and I'm very impressed. So shout out to Rowdy Mermaid Kombucha. Very, very excited to be trying these. So
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Sara, as Erica mentioned, you have worked with some pretty awesome brands, Carnival Cruise Line, PGA of America, and now Heelys. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, totally. So my background is I went to school for communications. I honestly kind of had no idea what I was doing. I knew I liked creating. I knew I liked storytelling. I thought I might want to go into journalism or be a reporter, but as soon as I kind of got into my program, it ended up being like a lot of rhetoric and writing. And I knew I was always a good writer, but I didn't feel passionate about it anymore. And again, really felt kind of lost in the moment, didn't know exactly what I wanted. I don't know how I stumbled into PR, but I was like, okay, let me just try PR. I kind of think I've always seen Sex and the City, Samantha Jones. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so glamorous. She's so fab. Maybe that's something I would like to do. And then from there, I realized that my college didn't offer a PR program at the time. I couldn't leave because I was there on an internship. That's how I was I was there on a scholarship and I wasn't really able to steer away from that. So I kind of took it upon myself to do what I can at the moment. I did a few internships at PR agencies, kind of dabbled in a little bit there. I was like, okay, maybe this is something that I can like. Graduation was kind of around the corner. Again, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I felt like such an infant going into the real world. And then someone in my class actually mentioned that there was this intensive internship program at PGA of America that kind of paid for your room at the time. You go on site. And I think I was just so lost that I kind of wanted to get away for a moment and really get that experience. I applied for their PR program, went through a bunch of interview rounds, sent in writing samples. They essentially called me back and were like, hey, you didn't get the position, but we think you to be a good fit for our social team in our marketing department. So at that point, I was just thankful to get a position. I was like, of course, like, I'll give it a try. It brought me into the world of social media and marketing. It was very corporate based. So I was like, okay, maybe I like the marketing aspect a little bit more than the social. And back then, social isn't what it is now.
Right.
After that was over, kind of just applied to everything in marketing. And I was able to get a really cool opportunity at Carnival Cruise Line. I kind of just wanted a big name under my belt.
Mm-hmm.
In the moment, I was just like, brand names as much as I can. So went through that. It was more so content based, a lot of writing, a lot of HTML, learned a lot about website upkeep, but I felt like I was lacking that visual creativeness. Like, yes, you can be creative with writing, but it was kind of just, it was missing something. I was losing my passion in what I was doing. At the time, they opened up a social media position. I was like, okay, maybe let's try this out. Did the same thing, went through a bunch of interview rounds, and thankfully I was there, and the director was able to pull me aside and was like, hey, that was great, but honestly, we're looking for more so an influencer position. We want someone with really lots of experience on the influencer side. So you didn't get the job. So I was like, okay, here, this again. I'm like, why is this happening? Of course, I felt super defeated. And crazy enough, it was like a week after the pandemic hit, and that position was completely eliminated.
Wow.
And I was able to luckily keep my job for a good amount of time. But with her feedback, and I wish more interviewers did this, I was able to get that information and be like, okay, this is what I'm going to need for my next role if I'm wanting to go into social media. So this is what I'm going to look for. I think sometimes we just interview and we don't get the job, and we're kind of like, okay, so like, what now? What did I do wrong? And then from there, of course, like, I eventually lost my job. It was Carnival, the pandemic. There was no sailing going on. And at that point, I just decided to apply to everything that had influencer partnerships. I literally applied to everything under the sun. There wasn't that many jobs at the moment, so I was freaking out. And then I was able to get this position, which I'm currently at. And I've been here for around 2 years. And it wasn't what I expected. I went into the interview. Of course, I did my research of the company, and they kind of had a bunch of brands named.
Yeah.
I had no idea what exactly it would be. And then in the interview, they were like, have you heard of Heelys? And I was like, what do you mean? Yes.
Yeah.
I grew up on Heelys. And yeah, it was a challenge at first, but it's been so fun.
That's awesome. Do you, because you kind of transitioned from, being in the sports industry to travel to fashion, what was that transition like across industries? Was that kind of difficult for you, or was kind of learning the industries pretty quick, or how did you go about those transitions?
Yeah. So for the PGA one, it was interesting because when I first heard about it, it was a boy in my class talking about it, very like golf bros type talk. And I was like, I know nothing about golf. My version of golf was just Tiger Woods, and that's it.
Right.
But I just wanted to try. It was such a challenge, especially it was a very male dominated industry. Most of my meetings were much older men. I was kind of usually the only girl in the room. And of course, the social side, everyone is like, oh, it's so easy, it's so fun. So that was really hard to navigate. Didn't really know the terms of golf, but learned a lot through there. And then with Carnival, I've always loved travel. All the copy I was doing was more so like travel based. I was really focused on the shore excursion side. So that I feel like came a little bit more naturally. And then switching over to commerce, it was a very different tone. The first two I felt was very corporate, not much you can do. And again, like, social wasn't what it was now. And now I think I'm thankful enough for my team to trust in me that I could kind of be a little chaotic with commerce, be a little crazy on TikTok, say pretty like funny stuff on Twitter. So just very different industries, and they have all been very different. I've definitely taken like some challenges from past and applied it to now, but the way like we've talked in every single industry is so different.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Heelys really has to be like such a fun brand to work for, I'm sure, because I've seen all of your content. You guys do get a little crazy on social and it's so fun. It's really striking like that nostalgic chord with millennials. And I'm sure now that like the customer base is primarily Gen Z, could you just talk about how Heelys kind of determines its ideal customer profile and then how you're speaking to each of those customers on social media? I know you guys do a lot with the nostalgia play for like older generation, but then you also have to speak to this new generation that might not have grown totally up with Heelys. I feel like it went away for a while and then came back in full force. So if you just have any insight around that, it'd be awesome to hear.
Yeah, totally. So we have a really good mix of millennial and Gen Z, like you mentioned. And we know this through analytics, but most importantly, just being so in tune with our community. I'm lucky enough, I was also a Heelys kid when I was little. So I feel like speaking to the millennial side kind of comes naturally. My goal is to always just kind of hit a nostalgic core with this type of audience. But then also keeping in mind that Gen Z is, with this resurgence of Heelys, of course, Gen Z is the new generation. And I think a lot of companies need to keep in mind that the analytics, if you're just focusing on the numbers, it will skew a little bit older because these people need to sign the terms of agreement. But that's where the community management comes into play, when you actually see how your audience is interacting and what they're saying and looking how they're talking to each other. You could really see they skew so much younger than your analytics might be set to be. And the way we talk to both audiences, I think, has it's similar and different in a lot of ways. I'm always trying to just hit that connection factor, but with Gen Z, I think one of everyone's social media fears to get canceled. I think cancel culture is really big amongst Gen Z, and it's really just taking the time to go into this. This is like a very big tip of mine. Go into every DM, go into all your DM requests, go onto people's profiles. We go into a rabbit hole of just, I don't want to say stalking people, but just going through like what they're talking about, seeing who they like, seeing like what interactions they have is so helpful, and it is time consuming. But I do want to say, like, I think I got a really good insight from just going into our Twitter DMs. It's not necessarily all about talking about Heelys, but just seeing like, what do these people like? What do these people want to see? What are they talking about? What are they watching on TV? Like, what's their culture like? And you could speak to the audience so well when you know, like, when you dive into their world a little bit more.
Yeah. Do you guys use any like social listening tools to kind of dive even deeper into that side of things? Or is it mainly just you getting involved on social media with your consumer?
Yeah, right now it's a team of one on the organic side. And so yeah, I do my best in really going deep dive into the DMs, going on forums, Reddit. Discord is pretty new to me, but there's a lot of cool information on there. I think really just taking your time to just see what Gen Z is talking about is super important, because this generation like really moves the needle. We see this like new authenticity of what they want, and I think it's really changed the social game. Social media isn't what it was a few years ago, and Gen Z like rules.
Yeah, absolutely. You've mentioned a little bit some of the platforms that you all are on, some of the strategies that you utilize for Heelys, but anything else around current social media strategy that you'd like to share? And what platforms as a whole are you guys on? TikTok as well? Are you on Instagram Reels? Like, what are you doing right now that you feel like is working for you guys?
Yeah, so we actually have a lot of platforms. I kind of like to sprinkle Heelys onto everything because you never know who will pick it up. But we're currently on Instagram, Facebook, dabbling into YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and I try to do my best in upkeeping Pinterest, which is slow slept on. But you get so much traction from Pinterest, especially with holiday times and really just reaching those parents. So really, and our strategy is very different across the board, I think my overall strategy is building this connection with our audience. I think we all go on social media to feel some type of way, whether it's to like escape or feel seen or feel understood, or even just feel sad for a moment, but you somehow like relate to it.
Mhm.
I think we're all going to social media for that. So the overall strategy is to make you feel some type of way. But of course, it's different with different platforms. Our Twitter is very Gen Z based. So the way I talk on Twitter is completely different than the way I talk on Instagram. The way we interact on TikTok is completely different than the way we interact on Facebook. So keep in mind the audience for each has its own strategy, and
Mhm.
always being willing to adapt. I'm sure you guys know, like we always have to adapt our strategy, and
Yeah.
it's not a sense of like feeling defeated when things don't work out. It's more so, okay, that didn't work. What can I try better? And that might work in a few months because we'll never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And just by looking at the content that you guys post, it's obvious that video is very important to you guys, as it should be to most brands or all brands, I would say. How has video impacted your guys' strategy, but also how has that been important to you guys as a brand too?
Yeah, so video is literally my jam. If you talk to anyone at the office, I'm like video queen. I'm always asking for video
Yes.
content, always taking video. I'm always looking for new videos to film, new ideas. It feel like it's just really changed the game on social media. I think video kind of adds that extra personality to your brand, which I always say is like my motto. All brands need a personality, and video kind of shows your company culture, kind of what you stand for. And of course, it's so much better when your product is Heelys. And of course, you need to actually show the shoe rolling. But we're really just steering away from that aesthetically pleasing grid that we all thought social media management was a few years ago.
Mhm.
To just being yourself and being authentic. No one wants to hear like, I'm obsessed with this product and this is why you should buy it because X, Y, and Z.
Right.
It's like, show me you relate, show me you know the trends, show me that you're like a real person trying to do a good job at what you're doing and not just like shoving a product down my throat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. Less sales, more relatability. I love that. And I cannot imagine, like we were talking about before, like how fun creating content for Heelys must be. I mean, I can imagine the number of things you could just do that would be a load of fun. But speaking of video too, I want to ask about TikTok for a second. Are you guys able to track sales from TikTok? Like, what does that conversion look like for you guys and driving people to your website to purchase? How has that been for you all?
So TikTok, we got a pretty good audience. Like I want to say a year ago, we actually just hit 200,000 on TikTok, which was
Awesome.
super exciting. We were like
Congrats.
an end of year goal and hit it by October. So I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
Heck
big
yeah.
win.
Awesome.
Love that.
We do track sales every month. I'll do a report on exactly how many sales we got per TikTok. Also keeping in mind that I do understand Heelys is not like a basic need of life as much as I wish it was. But I'm really tracking how many sessions come from just our TikTok.
Yeah.
I kind of just want to like hook you into, okay, you see our TikTok, you go onto our website, we start feeding you a little bit of ads here and there. You might not have the money right now, but when that money does come in, or if there's a birthday party and you're like, Heelys is top of mind.
Yeah.
So like of course some months the sales aren't as good as others, but really just trying to build those sessions on our site is super important to us, of course, other than like creating direct conversion.
Mhm.
Are you guys tracking that through like Google Analytics, or is it like the back end of the website type thing? Or are you
Yeah.
using like coupon codes or anything like that?
Yeah, so we track through Google Analytics. That's
Got
like
it.
kind of our safe spot. We do
Mhm.
have Shopify, and Shopify has like a really great integration of like showing you percentages and how many sessions you've had compared to last month. But I think Google Analytics would be like our best bet in tracking. It's the most reliable.
Yeah.
And then of course we use Bitly a lot. So we'll try to do the link in bio and see the traffic from there.
Mhm.
So it's always like looking up everything you can find.
Yeah. Being a little bit scrappy is always a good thing though, because then you're like able to even get your hands on more of like, oh, this piece of content generated like this many people going here, or like this many people going here. And that's so fun to like see the back end of that. So you can continue to like strategize and create new content that other people where you want to go.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, because like a lot of the things that you've mentioned, I feel like are very attainable ways of tracking analytics and things. I think people usually think about big companies and they're like, oh, they use these crazy platforms that cost a ton of money that are like very hard for a small business to utilize. But I think people forget that there's so much power in Google Analytics, which is free and available to you, or Shopify, which is like low cost, or depending on, you know, how many products or whatnot you're offering. But there's a lot of easy ways to track that stuff. And you don't have to spend like thousands and thousands of dollars a year to be able to get nitty gritty details, because it's all just right there for you. So that's awesome.
And it is time consuming, but really just, it's taking your time to go into like every post and seeing the insights, like how many people clicked on the product, how many people are sharing it, like what do you see works. I'm like obsessed with the numbers on the social side. And just taking your time to read all that is so helpful in your future strategy, because like we're always switching strategies. Like if I always say, if I told someone what everything I know about social media today, like it could all change tomorrow, and none of that will matter, and we're always trying to figure out the algorithm.
Yeah, definitely. I want to shift gears just a little bit. I'm all like about community building. It's my jam. So I'd love to just hear more about your influencer program. And I know that you guys just posted about a campus rep program. Could you share a little bit about that too?
Yeah, so our campus rep is probably like one of my favorite parts of the job. It's always fun seeing new reps come around. We have reps every semester. So we have them for around 4 months. They're always able to kind of keep going within our program. They all get like a Heelys swag box in the beginning of the semester, which will have Heelys and a couple little goodies. Their requirements are posting once a month, which is the perfect way to get UGC content. So like any other company is like thinking like, how can we do this? Having a campus ambassador program is so helpful. We do like a prize at the end of the month. We'll vote on who has like the best post. We'll either give a gift card or like a limited edition pair, but that's super helpful. We used to do the discount code more so like affiliate, but that kind of was just got out of hand with our internal team. Honestly, it's a lot of turnaround to get like 32 new reps every like 5 months. And then when COVID happened, it was just too much to keep up with. So that stopped, but it is something that I hope to bring again, because I think people are more going to promote your product when they have like a discount, and it's kind of like the clouded of it all. Like, oh, this company gave me a discount. It's like bragging rights. So something that we're definitely trying to push for again. But we do have an affiliate program for one of our other brands, Fairway, which I'm also the social lead on. And that is great. We use a Shopify integration called GoAF Pro. I couldn't recommend it enough.
What is it called again?
GoAF Pro.
GoAF Pro.
GoAFPRO.
Amazing.
It is so helpful. It's so easy to set up and accept people. People just kind of apply, submit their applications of who they are, what they're looking for, and you get a personalized link, which allows you to get like 5% of commission off each shoe sold using your link. So I think it's pretty great for both business and ambassador. It's kind of, you get what you make of it, as much as you promote, as much as you get back, and we get back. So it's super helpful. I think we're seeing more companies have this affiliate program, and it is such an easy, I don't want to say easy, but it is such a great way.
Beneficial, for sure.
To get content and just to keep promoting your product without you having to, you do the work on the back end, but you kind of sit back and trust the people that you have as your ambassador.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. How are you guys currently, I don't know, like seeding product to these ambassadors or campus reps? Like, is there like, oh, there's an important launch coming up, let's see if any of our ambassadors want this new product, or is it more of just like that constant every semester thing?
Yeah, so for our campus reps, it's just every semester you get a new pair of shoes. And then in terms of our influencers, we have a pretty good roster of who we worked with in the past. Thankfully, Heelys is kind of just a really fun brand. So before we had a lot of reach organically, we would send product out. I would send like my maximum was 20, my minimum was 20 shoes a month. So it was just like seeding out product and kind of fingers crossed, hoping for the best.
Yeah.
And we got a lot from that. But I think now with the shift of these are people's jobs and taking that into consideration, we've honestly seen a decline on how many people are posting. Of course, people want to get paid the same way. Like, this is my job the same way. It's their job to create content. So we've shifted gears a little bit in the past few months, trying to find out kind of just like a sweet contract to not negotiate too much, but every contract is different. Everyone wants different things, different deliverables. But I would say the best way we work with influencers is kind of just trusting their space. Like, we want to work with you because we genuinely like you and what you do, and you know your audience best. So like, who am I to say exactly what I need?
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of brings me to the next question of like, how do you determine who's a good fit for the brand? I know you're probably looking at your consumer base and trying to tap into some influencers that speak to that specific consumer base, but I'd love to know like what that looks like from beginning to end when you're looking at an influencer campaign.
Yeah, so thankfully, like I mentioned, we have a pretty good roster. So some of the times it's really just looking at people we've worked with in the past and who makes sense for what we're doing at the moment. It all depends on like the shoes and what we're trying to get out of it. But more so, we are just looking for, I don't want to say kid-like, but PG-13 friendly.
Sure.
We kind of give the guidelines of be family friendly, don't do anything crazy. Like, we don't want you to chug a bottle and go down a hill on Heelys and be like, I'm sponsored by Heelys. But we understand like your audience.
Totally.
We are just looking for people that I think just genuinely enjoy Heelys rather than looking for people that are just chasing a check and they're like, yeah, I love Heelys totally, and you've never ridden them in your life.
Yeah.
So it's definitely the authentic factor that we're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that too, kind of on another topic, we've noticed you guys have done a lot of really fun limited time collabs with other brands. And so I would be curious, what's kind of your role in those partnerships? And how do the strategy behind promoting those differ from maybe an evergreen product or like a standard shoe that you'd release to the market?
Yeah, so we have so many limited edition right now, which is super exciting, especially to me, since I feel like most of the people we worked with are brands that I've grown up with or have been so excited on. So every time we start working with someone new, I get on a client, I'm like, oh my God. We just released Pac-Man. And when we were on the call, I was like, I used to play Pac-Man all the time. Like, this is my jam. So luckily we have a pretty good licensing team since our company is a much larger company and we own so many brands. The licensing kind of just comes to us. We get presented with, hey, we want this opportunity? Do we think this is a good fit? And then my role in all that would be kind of vetting them, like yes, no, or yeah, our audience is talking about them, or no, like that would not make sense to our consumer. I know social like sometimes is overlooked, but we are the people that understand the audience best. If you present me with a brand that I've never heard of, or I'm like, our audience has never talked about that, it's more likely like not going to work. Every month I'll send a report of search result on Shopify. Like, what are people looking for? What are people talking about? Or even just throwing up that question option on Instagram and be like, what do you guys want to see? And then getting all those responses and relaying them to our licensing team. So really, I'm just like the hype woman of like, yes, we should do it, or like,
that's awesome.
No, we shouldn't do this. And then with them comes talking to the social team on like, how do we promote this? And all of that looks very different. And sometimes it is challenging since those licenses are pretty strict. There's a lot of things you can't say, a lot of sounds you can't use. So the way we market those are kind of cookie cutter based, depending on like who we're working with. Like Pac-Man, for example, was really open with us. So we had lots of fun with them, kind of a little banter on Twitter to release the launch. And other times it's just kind of graphics, text is approved, let's do what we can, compared to our just regular line that I can use any TikTok sound and kind of get a little bit crazy. And I think I mentioned before, I'm very lucky that I feel like my team has pretty good trust in me.
That's awesome.
I don't want to say do what I want, but I can get crazy. I can kind of tweet randomness, tweet random jokes, use different sounds on TikTok, and it's pretty relatable. Well, I try to make it pretty relatable and it's fun. So with those shoes, I can kind of do whatever when it's our standard shoes. And when it comes to licensing, I have to be so careful with like the sounds we use, what we're saying, like what hashtags were approved.
It's crazy. If you were to wave a magic wand, which brand would you want to create a shoe collab with?
Lisa Frank.
Oh, that would be awesome. Oh my gosh.
It's just so many times I was like, it makes so much sense. Like
it
has to happen.
Yeah, it makes way too much sense.
that one's like more so for me, like that hits my nostalgia. But if I can have any collab right now, it'd be Crocs.
Oh, I could see that happening for sure. That's awesome.
I'm always in their DMs. They're so sick of me. I'm always like, please, let's do something together.
Oh my gosh.
Anyone from Crocs is listening, I am waiting for you.
I love that. I love that you're like in the DMs and like in the comment section, just like commenting and doing all of that.
Awesome.
Do you do that a lot on like TikTok and stuff? I see brands all the time in the comment sections of like viral videos or like videos that are, you know, kind of fun and don't really have anything to do with the brand. Do you do that often?
I do. I think it kind of makes your name get recognized again. It kind of is like people coming back like, Heelys, I haven't heard of you in years.
Exactly.
That's usually like our top comment. But just scrolling down like the whole FYP and just kind of making other funny comments or being like, why am I getting served this?
Yeah.
There was one, someone made a video and it was like top comments from brands. And it was when Austin Butler was Elvis. And it was just like this hot video of him, honestly. And I just I'm a shoe. Why am I feeling this way? And then we got put into this like compilation of like brands being extra. And I was like, oh my God,
that's funny.
Awesome. That is
my gosh,
so cool.
Fun.
I've never worked for a brand that would have that much flexibility for someone to comment from the social team, like something so fun and just like original and in the moment. Like every time that I work for a brand, we've had to take those things like way to the top and like get legal approval and things like that. So I love that you're saying that they like trust you and they know that you kind of can speak for the brand in such a great way. And it really is relatable and just fun. It's so funny too. I love interacting with brands that are like funny on social media.
Yeah.
And I think it really sets you apart. I think with this whole like social media life, I'm more inclined to pitch for a brand and like love a brand if I feel like I have a connection to this brand at one point. Like if you answer my comment, I'm gonna be like, oh my God, like you're actually a real person behind the screen. And we see that so much. And like I've said before, going into those DMs, sometimes I'll randomly be like, happy Friday, everyone. Like, hope you have the best day. And then all our mentions from there on out was like, I talked to Heelys, like, even if they've never bought Heelys. It's kind of just starting that relationship. And it's time consuming, but making someone's day really goes such a long way in the long run.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so smart. And that's more companies should do that. I know a lot of people are doing it now, especially on like TikTok, especially with like, you know, of the moment videos where it is just so funny to comment on. But yeah, I think it's so smart.
That's awesome.
So Sara, I am a loyal follower of yours on social media, on LinkedIn, and you're always sharing some great insight. I would just want to hear a little bit about how you've kind of built your community on LinkedIn and how sharing your insights and experiences is boosting your personal brand, and why that's kind of important to your career is having that personal brand.
That was very new to me. LinkedIn is a whole new scope. But I think it has given me so much opportunities. Like, for example, like we're doing this because we connected on LinkedIn. I think when I first started working, I can't emphasize enough how lost I felt so many times. And I wish I kind of had someone not guiding me, but just being like, you're okay. Like things aren't chaos. It's just all in your head. And I found myself in a group chat with all the other brands. So like when you see us all comment, it's because we all have a secret group chat on the back end of things. And then going into that, I saw a lot of my other social friends just post on LinkedIn, and I felt so seen in the moment. I was like, I'm not going crazy. Like so many people are going through the same thing. And it made me feel so much safer being in the industry. And we do read a lot of comments, like as much great comments as we get a lot of negative comments as well, and not just about the brand, but about who's managing the brand, which can get really toxic. That's like a whole nother topic. But seeing them talk about their personal lives and their journey of work on LinkedIn made me feel so safe. And I was like, if they're making me feel this way, I hope to be that to someone else some way, somehow. And I started posting a lot about my work journey and my mental health on LinkedIn. And from that, I think I built so many great connections professionally and personally. And I've had people reach out in terms of like, I've struggled through the same thing mentally, or, hey, I've been looking for a job in social. Like, how did you get to the point of where you are? Or so many of the relationships we've built with brands and the collabs we've done, some have come from just having a conversation on LinkedIn. We have this super exclusive collab coming out, which I wish I could say right now, but most of that conversation came from the relationships built from LinkedIn to Twitter and all that stuff. So the opportunity is there, and I do wish I started earlier, but just by doing like a few posts here and there, my goal is to be more consistent with it again, but just have grown so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And besides your personal story, I notice you share a lot of awesome like tips and strategies on there. How do you find inspiration for sharing content on LinkedIn? Because I feel like a lot of times for me, I'm like, I want to be more consistent on LinkedIn, but I'm like, what do I post? I don't know what to share in a given day. So any tips there or things that you've used to kind of like stay consistent and have enough content to put out there?
Yeah, one of my things is definitely I want to be more consistent. Most of the time I feel like I take what has gone through in my day and just apply it to a LinkedIn post. If I felt like some type of way in something that happened like in work or personally, I'll be like, okay, this is actually a great thing that I feel like a lot of people can relate to. Most of the time it's just trying to think of how my day went. I know like recently I posted about getting off at 5 on the dot, and my whole life I thought leaving at 5 was so looked down on, and I felt so judged. And coming from such a corporate side of the world, I felt so judged in so many of the things that I do. So I take moments like that and I'm like, oh wait, if I'm feeling this, like someone else might be feeling it too. And sometimes when I post stuff, I'm like, this is crazy, like why am I sharing this? And when you hear the feedback of people being like, thank you for posting this, I'm like, oh, thank God.
Yeah. Yeah. I think most of the time too, like when I've seen the most success with an LinkedIn post is when I don't overthink it. I think that's the big thing. Like, just like you said, sharing about how your day went, sharing about something that came up during the day, and just kind of like firing that off and then hearing back like all the feedback is really cool for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Sara, unfortunately, we are coming to the end of the conversation, which I'm very bummed about. This has been so much fun just talking with you and chatting about what's going on in your life. But we do have a question for you that we love to ask all of our guests at the end of a recording. But what do you know now that you wish you knew early on in your career?
I'm like, I wish I could write a book to myself, like
yes,
full blown book of like, I wish I knew everything. But I think
start writing now. It's
right,
just like spill it out.
We'll help you record it right now.
Start writing everything down, like journal.
Yeah.
But I think my biggest thing would be, and I still need to remind myself of this every single day, but I wish I knew that you make your own definition of what success means to you. And that is so different than everyone else's version of success and what society tells you what success is. And And it is most definitely not a straight line up. Like you are going to feel so lost and confused. And still to this day, like I feel so lost and confused sometimes, but just trusting the process of things might have not worked out and it was for a good reason. Looking back at my journey, so many times I was like, why didn't I get that? Like, why didn't that work out? And it's only led me to where I am right now, which is such a great spot. And it felt like I found such a great voice within myself personally and professionally because of all the stuff that's happened before.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the majority of people we ask that question to have a version of that answer. And I think it's something that I didn't realize either when I was younger and just like starting out in my career. And I mean, we're still all young, we're still in the middle of it, but I think it's fun to just like look back and see, oh wow, like that's a real thing. Like you don't have to put all this pressure on yourself to like be perfect and take on everything. Like your path is your path. And I think that's important for people to know too. So
yeah, like success I thought was always just like climbing this corporate ladder. Like you're going to be the CEO of a company by the time you hit 25. When I passed 25, I was like, okay, well, I'm not there. And you like beat yourself up here and there, but just knowing like that's success to other people. Success is like, for me, it might just be happy being at home.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, on that note too, really quickly, do you know what your future looks like, or not necessarily what it looks like, but what are you working towards right now? Do you want to continue to be in the influencer space? Would you like to dabble in other areas of marketing? What are you thinking right now?
Yeah, I think more so definitely want to stay in marketing. I think I've been through this recent phase of like trying to find out what my passion is. And my mom the other day was like, you know, you've always been passionate of like creating and thinking of different ways to just like shed light to things. So definitely something in that realm. I'm not exactly sure where that journey will go yet, but I like where I'm at. I hope to just continue more so focusing on my personal brand. I hope one day to kind of do things on my own. I love working for companies, but if I can step away from that a bit more and focus on different industries, I think that'd be awesome. So we'll see.
Yeah, we're excited to follow along with you and kind of see where you're headed after where you're at now. And in talking about that, where can everyone follow you and follow along with what you're doing and keep up with you in future?
Yes, so my personals are all Sara Arbelaez, last name Arbelaez. It's super confusing. No one knows how to pronounce it, but I talk a lot about personal journey on LinkedIn. I share kind of randomness on TikTok and Instagram. So if you guys are interested.
Yeah. And where can people follow Heelys?
Heelys worldwide on everything. We are everywhere.
Fantastic. We'll put all of that in the show notes, but yeah.
Thank you, Sara, for coming on and just sharing your journey with us. And like Erica said, just so excited to check in with you soon and see where you're at, but we'll continue to follow along with you and everything you're doing at Heelys. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. And thank you for giving me a space.
Absolutely.
Today, we learned to spend time on the platform in your DMs and comments when learning about your community and what makes them excited. Number 2, we learned to pay attention to website data, including sessions and purchases resulting from social media. This can tell you what's resonating with your audience and what is converting your customers and what isn't. Number 3, don't let rejection in your career set you back. Use it to propel you forward and push you to develop your skill set. Wasn't Sara great? She is such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to community building and showing up for your people online. If you enjoyed listening to this conversation as much as we did, please take a moment to rate and subscribe to the show. And we'd love for you to join us on LinkedIn to continue the conversation with our community. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.